Welcome to the Anime Audiophile Podcast. Enjoy. Itachi Shinden, Book of Dark Night. Chapter 5. Stricken Raven, faced with the death of a comrade, deciding. So this is how it's going to be, huh? Kakashi muttered. Beside him, Itachi held his breath. At that moment, his team leader, the lower half of his face covered by a black mask, was already gone. Itachi jumped off the cliff after him. The dead bodies of his comrades lay in the valley ahead. Land of Frost ninjas had killed them. The two lands had been on the verge of forming an alliance when it happened. The alliance was to be made official 10 days later, and they had been in the middle of a mission to exchange letters stating the final terms when the ninjas from the Land of Frost suddenly bared their teeth. The enemy had been uninterested in an alliance from the start. For Konoha ninjas up against 10 from the Land of Frost. Outnumbered. In the blink of an eye, the Konoha ninjas tasked with the duty of receiving the letter had been killed. If they witnessed a breakdown of negotiations, they were to exterminate the enemy. That was the mission Itachi and his team had been given. In other words, they were not to move until the situation was clear. Thus, their initial response had been delayed, leading to the annihilation of their allies. The moment 10 Land of Frost ninjas appeared, a suspiciously large force, it had felt very much like a breakdown in the process. If the Umbu had leapt out at that point in time, their comrades might not have died. However, even if Itachi had been leading the team, he couldn't have moved until all 4 were wiped out. Ahead of him, Kakashi landed in the midst of the enemy, his right hand already piercing one of the ninjas. A stream of blue lightning enveloped his arm. Chidori. Kakashi's best technique. By the time his team leader was pulling his arm back out, Itachi had landed dead center among the enemy. There were 2 other Umbu with them. One was Shuguru, and the other was a ninja called Tenzo. He was a little younger than Kakashi, but his career in the Umbu had already been fairly long. Konoha Umbu, an enemy ninja shouted. In the next instant, a thick tree branch tangled up around the man's throat and tightened, like a snake. Unable to push back against the incredible force of it, the man expired, long tongue lolling from his mouth. It was Tenzo's jutsu. He was able to use with style, a ninjutsu only the first Hokage, Hashirama, had been able to use. Konoha never had any intention of making an alliance with us, another enemy said to Kakashi. You came at us first. Kakashi didn't wait for the other man to argue the fact. Chidori dug into the other ninja's stomach. Itachi heard a shriek from behind him. Looking over his shoulder, he saw an enemy hurtling toward him, a long sword held up above his head. Itachi turned around. The sword closed in on the top of his head. He quickly lifted his arm and grabbed the wrist of the enemy's hand on the hilt. NGH. Give it up, Itachi advised, still clutching the man's wrist. Unable to bring the sword down on Itachi, the enemy glared at him, cold sweat popping up on his forehead. The Sharingan. His enemy shuddered violently once, and then completely relaxed. Like a marionette with its strings cut, the man had started to droop and fall toward the ground, when his head rolled off into space before Itachi's eyes. A ninja blade glittered to the rear of the enemy. Shuguru. The mission from the Lord Hokage is the extermination of the enemy, Shuguru murmured in a voice only loud enough for Itachi to hear. He had seen through Itachi's secret plan to trap the man in Jinjutsu with the Sharingan and make him pass out. There was no need to exterminate the enemy. Whether their envoys returned or not, the incident here would soon be known to the Land of Frost. It was vengeance enough to take out the ones who had murdered the 4 Konoha ninjas. Letting the others live and return home to relate the true power of Konoha would be a more effective check against the Land of Frost. I know, he told Shuguru's back, as the man was already turning toward a new enemy. Then, Itachi set his sights on a new target. There were 4 enemy ninjas left. They had already lost the will to fight. Shuguru's blade flew toward the neck of one on his knees, begging for his life. Beyond him, Tenzo's wood-style ninjutsu produced sharp branches that pierced the back of a female ninja trying to flee. This will make the land of Frost and Konoha enemies. Your lives will prevent that, Kakashi said gently, as his arm ripped into the other man's solar plexus. Itachi! Tenzo! Itachi caught sight of an enemy coming toward him with a grim look, prepared for death. Holding kunai in both hands, clenching his teeth as he raced toward Itachi, the boy was still not even 10 years old. The land of Frost was small. Although the larger battles were no more, in a country that still had few ninjas and a national power that was immature, even a child like this had plenty of war potential. Gah! His battle cry already sounded like a sob. Itachi met the boy head-on. A sharp pain raced through his stomach. The boy's kunai had stabbed him. The slender shoulders shook fiercely as they touched Itachi's belly. The boy's terror had surpassed his limits, and tears began to fill his eyes. Itachi! Kakashi shouted. I'm all right, he replied calmly, and Kakashi and the others watched, surrounding him from a distance. Shaking like a leaf, the boy slowly lifted his face. Tears spilled out of the eyes that looked up at Itachi. Ah! On! His fear became sound and slipped out of him. You're a proper ninja now. Be strong, Itachi told his enemy kindly. In his confusion and fear, the boy had no idea what was going on. He shook his head from side to side and desperately tried to turn his eyes away from reality. You didn't run away, you came right at me. So, I want to treat you with the courtesy a full-fledged ninja deserves. Itachi grabbed his kunai from behind so that the boy couldn't see. He ran his blade up from below into the slender nape of his crying enemy's neck. He gently pulled the kunai from his own stomach and stepped back. A spray of blood shot out from the boy's neck. None of it splattered Itachi. This, too, was etiquette for a ninja. The young body fell onto the pile of corpses, neither enemy nor ally. This is also a battlefield, Itachi murmured, not loud enough for anyone else to hear. Am I actually getting closer to my dream? Itachi asked himself in his heart. He felt as though his body were gradually growing heavier, buried in the easy flow of time. His childhood days when he prayed with all his heart that he would become a ninja stronger than anyone else were already in the distance, and the bonds coiling about his entire body were trying to trap Itachi in the framework of just a ninja. If this is how it is, I want to just walk away from the village, the clan, the Umbu, and be free. He knew that this would never be allowed. The boy's eyes, devoid of light, stared endlessly at the troubled Itachi. Make a list of the number of expected participants at the time of action, invasion routes, attack targets, and assassination targets. I'd like to decide on the crucial day of action at the next meeting. Put together your opinions before then. If you have any ideas, you can speak them at any time. Simply make sure to be careful of the eyes of the people of the village. When Fugaka finished speaking, the brethren relaxed for a moment. They were loosening up at the thought of the end of the meeting. But that easy calm was shattered by the tense voice of Yashiro. Is Itachi here? Itachi felt a disgust at the voice calling his name. When he didn't answer, the voice called his name again in irritation. Itachi! I'm here. Itachi raised a heavy arm. Rather than rebuke Itachi for his attitude, Yashiro simply stared at him with cold eyes. You were there at the breakdown of negotiations with the Land of Frost the other day, yes? Itachi said nothing. Answer me. Umbu missions are not to be spoken of to outsiders. Are you seriously saying that to me? A deep groove grew between Yashiro's eyebrows. Itachi stared at the narrow eyes before him without responding. For what purpose did you join the Umbu? Itachi was silent again. To obtain a variety of information from a place close to the center of the village and report to us, Yashiro answered himself. Yashiro. As if to toss his silent son a lifeline, his father said the name of his trusted retainer. Yashiro made no move to answer him, but simply continued to glare at Itachi. What have you brought to us since joining the Umbu? Not once have we heard the secrets of the village from your mouth. I just don't know any, so I can't talk about them. Is it really only that? What is that supposed to mean? The spirit of rebellion flickered in Itachi's eyes. Yashiro took this with a daring smile crawling across his face, while a man with long hair stood up beside him. Uchiha Inabi. He, too, was Itachi's father's trusted confidant. You're turning on us, aren't enough? Fugaku roared. Both Yashiro and Inabi were forced into silence at this rare display of anger from Fugaku. You both understand exactly what this time means for the clan. We cannot follow through on these serious matters when we are each other's throats. The men were silent. Finally, Yashiro sat down, disgruntled, and Inabi followed suit. You sit, too, Itachi. His father glared. Itachi. His father's voice sounded weak to him as he stood there still. Almost like an entreaty. Excuse me. The pain in Itachi's chest naturally turned into words and spilled out. His father desperately tried to pull everyone together. Why was he being so servile, trying to reconcile everyone? Was the framework of the clan that important? To Itachi, it looked as though his father were being toyed with by the passion of the younger men. I don't understand. At any rate, the next meeting will decide our path. It will be an important meeting. Be aware that absences will not be tolerated. The meeting ended with turmoil still in the air. Itachi began to walk home alone, without meeting anyone's eyes. He didn't even see Shisui or Izumi. Danzo looked down at Hiruzen, who was putting his pipe to his lips. They were alone in the Hokage's office. 6 months since he joined the Yambu, Hiruzen said, exhaling smoke. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. I'm talking about the boy you have your eyes on. Occasionally, Hiruzen spoke in this sort of roundabout way. He's carrying out his duties faithfully. I see. Didn't you come to talk about him? Hiruzen had seen through him. For Danzo, who hated more than anyone to have his own thoughts read, it was deeply difficult to endure. He made a move in return. It appears you have an Uchiha directly under you now, Hiruzen? Hiruzen brought the pipe to his lips, looking as though Danzo had poked a painful spot. Danzo ignored the look and continued. I hear you've removed Uchiha Shisui from his regular duties and given him permission to move at his own discretion and judgment? And that, in name at least, we have another Uchiha in the Yambu. Shisui wanted me to give him the freedom to act. I simply opened the road to him. So now the Hokage is listening to the whims of a mere ninja? I simply took into consideration the feelings of someone worried about the Uchiha clan. If you give the same consideration to the circumstances of every single person, the village will fall apart. I know. I don't need you telling me that. Hiruzen shouted, revealing his irritation. How about you stop beating around the bush, and tell me already? What exactly have you come for today, Danzo? I should really stop torturing him already, Danzo gloated in his heart, before bringing up the matter he had under consideration. Just as you have one of the Uchiha clan under your control, I should like one arranged for me. Hiruzen made an obviously disgusted face the instant the word control left Danzo's mouth. Once he had finished listening, the corners of his mouth turned up slightly as he looked at the other man. You're saying give Itachi to the Foundation? The thought never even entered my head. Don't play dumb. I am not playing dumb, Danzo asserted. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes, measuring Danzo's sincerity. The countless creases around the corners of his eyes deepened. What are you thinking, then? Why not promote Itachi to team leader? He's still only 11. And Yambu team leaders are to be 13 or older, Danzo said, a thin smile spreading across his face. You do have that rule there somewhere, HM? Hiruzen got an uncomfortable look on his face. The Yambu are a division supporting the central pillars of the village. The team leaders who rule over them must have sufficient judgment. Thus, the requirement that they be at least 13. Sufficient judgment. Itachi already has that. that's not the issue. Age and the like are meaningless before actual ability. Danzo's firm stance pushed Hiruzen into silence. Are the rules that important, Hiruzen? The dissatisfaction of the Uchiha clan is already a nearly untenable situation. In order to break through this status quo, we need someone in a position to make effective use of the will of the Foundation, and someone connected with you. A Mirambu ninja won't be able to avoid the orders of his team leader. Promoting Itachi makes it easier for him to move. You're saying put him between you and I, without having him belong to the Foundation? That's exactly what I'm saying. No one in the Uchiha clan can match the abilities of Itachi and Shisui. If we can win those two over, it likely won't be difficult to prevent the explosion of their clan. Just as you gave Shisui special privileges, it is necessary to give a certain amount of the same to Itachi. But 11 is simply too young to lead a team. Hiruzen was wavering. One more little push. Then, what if you were 12? The third Hokage did not respond. Itachi's publicly disclosed age goes up a year, and that neatly takes care of the rule, don't you think? Let me think about it a little more. Understood, Danzo was certain. Hiruzen would definitely consent. How's school? Itachi asked his brother as he wet his throat with some cold juice. It's way better to train here like this with you. Sasuke smiled, looking up at Itachi from the bench where he sat, clutching in both hands a can with droplets of water forming on it. It's way better to train here like this with you. Back when he had first started at the academy, Itachi had said the same sort of thing to Shisui. Once again, he felt keenly how alike he and his brother were. His mission finished early, so he decided to train with Sasuke once he got home. Because Itachi couldn't spend too much time with him normally, he actively tried to create opportunities. And the time he spent with Sasuke soothed Itachi more than anything else in his life. Sweating together with his little brother, he could escape his everyday troubles. When did it start being like this? Lately, whenever he saw Shisui, all they did was talk about where the clan was headed. It had been who knew how many years since they trained together. Even talking with Izumi, his attention ended up focused on her feelings, and he couldn't stay free of obstructive thoughts. He knew he was too involved there, but he couldn't help it. In the end, it was only when he was training with his brother that he could just be himself, without thinking about anything. Is school boring? No, it's not, but, Sasuke mumbled, staring at the opening in his can. Itachi had a pretty good idea of what his baby brother was thinking. Is it that your skills and thinking are too different, so things aren't going too well with your friends? Because it had been like that for Itachi. He had been able to do everything better than everyone else, so the other students in his class had seemed very much like children. Their way of thinking, and the way they faced things, had been too juvenile. He hadn't been able to talk with them with the same sense of values. He wondered upsetly if it wasn't the same for Sasuke. He felt like his brother shared the same awkwardness he did when it came to interacting with people. I don't especially want it to go well or anything. I mean, those guys, their ninjutsu and their schoolwork are just totally no good. What about Naruto? Huh? Sasuke's eyes widened at the unexpected name that came out of his brother's mouth. The gaze he turned upward to Itachi was clouded with surprise. Itachi himself was surprised. He didn't know why he had said Naruto's name. The child with the golden hair who was the same age as his little brother had simply popped into his head. He's a total disaster, no matter what they make us do. And he's always finding a reason to bug me. He's super annoying. So, Naruto bugs you? I don't think about him at all, but then he'll come over to me and start complaining and stuff. If his little brother's position at school was no different from Itachi's when he had been there, then Itachi assumed the other students gave Sasuke a wide berth. While they acknowledged his abilities, none of them truly tried to befriend him. However, Naruto walked right up to Sasuke. The boy boasting he would be Hokage came back to life in Itachi's mind. That poor child with the 9 tails in his body, no one wanted anything to do with him. Despite this, he had unshakable faith in his big dreams. His bearing, his way of talking, everything about him was the polar opposite of Sasuke. But when Itachi imagined the two of them together, it seemed strangely fitting. He comes over to you because he's curious about you. Be nice to him. I can't be nice to a kid like that. It'd be nice if you could someday, Itachi said, placing the palm of his hand on Sasuke's head. There's totally no way. Sasuke shut his eyes tightly, his nose crinkling up, and gritted his teeth. Unconsciously, Itachi burst out laughing at the funny expression. His little brother relaxed his face, and also started to laugh. The warm evening passed peacefully. End of part 1. Thank you for listening. Remember to like and subscribe for lots more.